Ford just dropped a massive bombshell, and it's shaking the entire US auto industry to its core. In a move no one saw coming, Ford has unleashed huge discounts across its truck lineup, slashing prices on some of its most iconic models, from the F-150 to the Ranger and even the Super Duty lineup. These aren't small markdowns either. We're talking thousands of dollars off sticker prices, deep enough to make competitors like GM, Ram, and Toyota panic. But the big question everyone's asking right now is, why now? Why is Ford suddenly cutting prices on trucks that have dominated the American market for decades? The answer goes far deeper than just competition. Ford is under massive pressure. Sales have been slipping, dealer inventories are piling up, and interest rates are choking the average buyer. Many Americans who once could easily afford an F-150 are now getting rejected by lenders or turning to used trucks instead. Ford knows this, and they also know something even scarier is brewing. Tesla's Cybertruck, Rivian's R1T, and even Chinese EV pickups are coming for the same audience Ford built its empire on. If Ford doesn't move fast, it risks losing the working-class truck buyer it's relied on for decades. So, this price war isn't just a marketing move, it's a survival tactic. But this sudden discount wave is sending shockwaves through the entire auto industry. When Ford slashes prices, every other automaker feels the ripple effect. GM, Ram, and Toyota now face a brutal dilemma. Either match Ford's prices and risk losing profits, or keep prices high and watch customers walk away. This kind of aggressive pricing could trigger a full-blown price war, something we haven't seen in decades. And if that happens, dealerships across America might face chaos. Inventory costs, shrinking profit margins, and massive shifts in what people buy. Because when Ford trucks suddenly become cheaper than a mid-sized SUV, the entire market balance shifts overnight. Now here's the burning question on every buyer's mind. Should you buy one now? For truck lovers who've been waiting years for prices to cool off, this might be the perfect moment. Discounts this deep don't come often, and they might not last long. But buyers should also stay sharp. Ford is likely clearing out 2024 and early 2025 models to make room for its next-generation hybrid and electric trucks. That means while the prices are tempting, newer tech could be right around the corner. Better mileage, improved towing, and updated interiors. For buyers focused purely on value, these deals are gold. But for those looking long-term, the upcoming models might be worth the wait. Still, it's clear. Ford is trying to flood the market, win back trust, and reclaim dominance from rivals who've been quietly stealing their thunder. But the part that isn't being talked about enough is how this impacts Ford's workers and factories. When automakers slash prices, someone always feels the squeeze, and it's often the workers on the line. Lower prices mean tighter margins, and that puts pressure on factories to cut costs or increase output. Ford's UAW workers just fought hard for better wages and benefits. But if profits shrink because of these massive discounts, the company may look for efficiency improvements, a corporate code word that often means layoffs, automation, or fewer shifts. The ripple effects could be brutal. Suppliers may face order cuts, local economies around Ford plants could slow down, and smaller parts, manufacturers might struggle to survive. And yet, Ford can't afford not to do this. Truck sales make up nearly half of Ford's total revenue. And if buyers stop coming, everything collapses, from factory production to Wall Street confidence. This move shows just how desperate the market has become. Interest rates are biting, EV sales are stagnating, and consumers are holding off big purchases. Ford knows the only way to survive is to get those trucks moving again, even if it means sacrificing short-term profits to keep the assembly lines rolling and the brand alive in the long term. But what happens next could decide the future of the entire American auto industry. Because if Ford's gamble pays off, it could completely redefine how automakers price and sell vehicles in the next decade. Think about it. For years, car prices have done nothing but skyrocket. Between markups, dealership fees, and rising interest rates, owning a new truck became a luxury, not a necessity. Ford slashing prices could finally break that cycle, forcing other automakers to bring prices back down to earth. But if this strategy backfires, it could drag the entire industry into a dangerous downward spiral, where every manufacturer keeps cutting deeper just to stay competitive, eventually eroding profits and triggering massive layoffs. Right now, We're watching what could become the biggest price war since the 2008 financial crash. Back then, automakers flooded the market with incentives just to keep factories alive. This time, Ford's move is strategic, but also risky. They're betting that lower prices will restart demand, that buyers who walked away will finally come back. But there's one big difference between now and 2008. Consumers are smarter, more cautious, and facing far more financial pressure. Many Americans are dealing with record car loan debt and higher insurance rates, so even with discounts, buyers are thinking twice. Ford knows that, which is why these discounts aren't just about affordability. They're about psychology. Ford is trying to remind America that it still builds the trucks that built this country, and now, at a price that feels within reach again. But the bigger question is how Ford's competitors will respond. GM and Ram can't afford to stay quiet. GM's Silverado and Ram's 1500 have been riding on strong sales, but they've also been leaning heavily on premium trims. Trucks that push well past $60,000. If Ford's discounted F-150s start flying off lots, GM and Ram will be forced to follow suit, slicing prices on their own models or rolling out aggressive financing deals. That could mean 0% APR offers, extended warranties, or trade-in bonuses. The ripple effect could send shockwaves down to even smaller brands. Toyota, Nissan, and Honda might need to rethink their entire truck strategies. The whole industry could soon be in a discount-driven arms race. Meanwhile, inside Ford's corporate offices, the pressure is building. Executives know these discounts could buy short-term victory but create long-term headaches. Lower profits mean less money for EV development, R&D, and future tech investments. Ford's electric F-150 Lightning program already cost billions, and it's still not profitable. So while these discounts might save their gas truck sales today, they could delay Ford's electric future tomorrow. It's a delicate balancing act. Sell enough now to survive, but not so cheap that you starve your future. And let's not forget about the dealerships, the real front lines of this entire war. Dealers are both celebrating and panicking. On one hand, discounted trucks mean more traffic, more deals, and more movement on aging inventory. On the other, it also means smaller margins and more aggressive competition from other Ford dealers across the country. Some are saying this could spark a dealer versus dealer showdown, with stores undercutting each other just to hit sales targets. That kind of chaos could reshape how vehicles are sold altogether, maybe even push Ford closer to a direct-to-consumer model, similar to Tesla. But behind all this corporate strategy, there's a bigger human story: the American worker. The men and women who assemble these trucks, who depend on Ford's success, who live in towns where a single shift change can make or break the local economy. They're watching this move more nervously than anyone. Because for them, these discounts could mean either job security or a ticking time bomb. If Ford sells more trucks, factories stay busy, shifts stay full, and paychecks keep coming. But if prices fall too far and profits dry up, it could lead to plant slowdowns, furloughs, or even closures. The stakes couldn't be higher. And while all this unfolds, Wall Street is paying close attention. Investors are torn. Some see Ford's move as bold and necessary, others see it as a sign of weakness. Stock prices have already started to wobble, and analysts are warning that if this price cut fails to spark sales growth, Ford could be forced to make even deeper cuts in production or shift entirely toward EVs just to survive. But what's really interesting is how this could reshape the identity of the American truck itself. For decades, the American pickup truck has been a symbol of strength, pride, and hard work, the backbone of industries, farms, and families. But now, as Ford slashes prices and resets the market, that symbol is evolving. Trucks are no longer just about hauling and towing. They're becoming a reflection of the economy itself. Every discount, every rebate, every price drop tells a story of how American manufacturing is adapting to survive in a world of uncertainty. Ford's bold move is exposing a painful truth. The era of endlessly rising vehicle prices might finally be cracking, and the automaker willing to move first could define what comes next. But this transformation doesn't come without risk. As prices fall, the resale value of existing trucks will also take a hit. Owners who bought their F-150s or Rangers at full price just months ago are now seeing their vehicles depreciate faster than expected. That's creating frustration among loyal customers who feel blindsided. And in a market where brand loyalty means everything, Ford can't afford that kind of backlash. Yet, they're gambling that the influx of new buyers attracted by lower prices will outweigh the frustration of those who paid more. It's a dangerous balancing act between growing market share and keeping longtime fans happy. Meanwhile, on the streets, dealers are witnessing something they haven't seen in years: truck lots getting busy again. Families, contractors, and small business owners are showing up, running numbers, asking questions, and feeling that spark of possibility again. For the first time in a long time, a brand new Ford truck doesn't feel completely out of reach. That's exactly what Ford wanted: to reignite desire, to make Americans believe in the idea of owning a truck again. But that renewed interest also comes with questions. How long will these discounts last? Will the supply chain be able to handle the sudden demand surge? And can Ford keep up production without driving costs through the roof? Behind closed doors, Ford executives are also keeping a close eye on Washington. The Biden administration's EV mandates and environmental targets are pushing automakers to transition faster toward electric. But the reality is, the EV truck market just isn't ready yet. High prices, limited charging infrastructure, and cold weather performance issues have kept many truck buyers on the sidelines. Ford knows this. By discounting its gas and hybrid trucks, it's buying time to sell through its traditional lineup while refining its EV technology in the background. Essentially, Ford is using its trucks as a financial lifeline to stay afloat while it rebuilds its electric strategy. And that brings us to a deeper, more complex issue: the battle between old America and new America. On one side, you have the legacy of Detroit, built on V8 engines, steel frames, and decades of craftsmanship. On the other, the growing push for electric, autonomous, and software-driven vehicles. Ford's massive price cuts might look like a short-term business move, but they're also symbolic of that struggle. They're saying, we're not ready to let go of what made us great. Ford is fighting to keep its traditional customer base alive: the farmers, the construction workers, the small-town families, while still trying to convince Wall Street it can compete in the electric future. But there's another factor almost no one is talking about: foreign competition. Chinese automakers like BYD and Geely are quietly preparing to enter the US truck market with lower-cost electric pickups that could undercut everyone, including Ford. If that happens, these discounts might not be a one-time event. They could become the new normal. Ford's early price cuts might actually be a defensive move, a preemptive strike to make sure foreign competitors can't swoop in and dominate with ultra-cheap models. So, as the dust settles, Ford's decision is starting to look less like desperation and more like a strategic reset, a recalibration of what American trucks should cost and who should be able to afford them. Still, the question remains: can this bold gamble really save Ford from the storm that's coming? Because make no mistake, a storm is coming. The auto industry is standing at a crossroads, and Ford's move just lit the fuse. If these discounts work, every other automaker will have to respond. If they fail, it could trigger a financial domino effect that reshapes the industry for years to come. Imagine what happens if GM or Ram follow Ford's lead. Prices across the board will plunge. Dealerships will scramble to offload old inventory, and used truck values will collapse almost overnight. It could become the biggest market correction in modern automotive history. But for Ford, this is more than just a business risk. It's an identity crisis. For decades, the brand built its empire on trust, loyalty, and a sense of toughness that resonated with working Americans. Now, with prices dropping and competition rising, Ford is trying to prove it still understands the heartbeat of the people who buy its trucks. These discounts are Ford's way of saying, "We hear you. We know times are hard, and we're not giving up on you." It's a message aimed not just at buyers, but at an entire country that's struggling with affordability and economic uncertainty. And while the headlines scream discounts, what's really happening is deeper. Ford is quietly re-engineering its future. Lower prices might draw buyers in, but they also mask a shift in strategy. Ford is experimenting with cost-cutting on the production side, simplifying trim levels, consolidating supply chains, and introducing modular platforms that allow for quicker, cheaper builds. In short, Ford is trying to figure out how to make trucks faster, cheaper, and smarter, without losing quality. These discounts are just the front-facing part of a much bigger transformation. Still, the human toll can't be ignored. Inside the factories, workers are starting to feel the tension. Overtime hours are being reduced, hiring freezes are quietly spreading, and subcontractors supplying parts are already bracing for cuts. The irony is painful. Ford's plan to keep trucks affordable might end up making life harder for the very workers who build them. If sales don't rebound fast enough, Ford could be forced to adjust operations, which in corporate language means fewer shifts and possible layoffs. The line between survival and sacrifice is getting thinner by the day. And yet, there's a sense of determination inside Ford's walls. Leadership believes this is the only way forward. In their eyes, it's better to fight and adapt than to fade away slowly. The company's top brass understands that loyalty in the modern market is fleeting. Consumers don't stick around out of habit anymore. They follow value, innovation, and trust. So Ford's discounts are more than a reaction. They're a statement. A way of reclaiming attention in a world where flashy EV startups and foreign competitors are stealing headlines. But beyond Ford's immediate crisis lies something even bigger: the future of American manufacturing itself. If this discount strategy proves successful, it could send a powerful signal across every U.S. industry struggling with high costs and global competition. The only way to survive is to adapt fast and price aggressively. Automakers, appliance companies, even home builders could take notes from Ford's playbook. Because what's happening right now isn't just a truck story. It's a story about how America makes and sells its most iconic products in an economy that's shifting beneath its feet. And as Ford braces for the coming months, one thing is certain. The company that started the assembly line revolution over a century ago is once again trying to rewrite the rules of the game. But whether that gamble will restore Ford's dominance or drive it deeper into danger depends on what happens next, on how buyers, competitors, and even Washington respond in the coming months. Because Ford's discounts are not just a sales tactic anymore, they're a test of the American consumer's pulse. Will Americans rush back to dealerships, proving that affordability still reigns supreme? Or will they hold back, signaling that trust, technology, and long-term value now matter more than a temporary deal? Ford's leadership is betting everything that price is still king, that the heartbeat of the truck market is still in the hands of hardworking Americans who just want something reliable, powerful, and within reach again. But here's where the situation gets even more complicated. Ford's aggressive pricing is already putting enormous strain on its suppliers. Tire manufacturers, steel producers, and electronic parts makers, many of whom depend on Ford's steady orders, are starting to feel the squeeze. When Ford cuts prices, every layer of the supply chain feels the impact. Suppliers are being pushed to lower costs, delay payments, and meet tighter deadlines. That's creating a ripple effect that could soon spread far beyond Detroit. If suppliers start downsizing or closing, it won't just hurt Ford. It'll rattle the entire U.S. manufacturing ecosystem. At the same time, smaller dealerships, especially in rural America, are growing anxious. For years, they've relied on high-margin truck sales to stay afloat. Now, with discounts cutting deep into profits, many are wondering if they'll even survive this new reality. Some have started merging or selling their franchises altogether, unable to compete with bigger urban dealers who can afford to undercut prices. It's a quiet consolidation wave that could permanently reshape how cars are sold across the country. Fewer independent dealers, more centralized control, and possibly a future where Ford handles direct online sales like Tesla. Meanwhile, economists are sounding alarms about what this could mean for the broader market. Trucks aren't just vehicles. They're a major economic driver. When truck prices fall sharply, it affects resale values, trade-ins, and loan structures. Banks holding auto loans could suddenly face more risk if collateral values drop. That means tighter lending standards, fewer approvals, and an even tougher buying environment for consumers already stretched thin. What started as Ford's pricing move might end up becoming a macroeconomic shock that ripples through credit markets and consumer spending. But perhaps the most fascinating part of this whole situation is how it's reigniting competition in ways nobody expected. Just days after Ford announced its discounts, whispers began circulating that GM is preparing its own set of price cuts for Silverado models, and Ram is rumored to be following suit. If that happens, we're not just looking at isolated markdowns. We're staring at a full-blown price war among America's biggest truck makers. That could be great news for buyers, at least in the short term, but devastating for profit margins across the board. The battle for the American truck buyer could soon turn into a fight for survival among the automakers themselves. Inside Ford, though, the message remains clear: adapt or die. The company's leadership knows that the old formula of high prices and brand loyalty no longer guarantees success. They're pivoting toward volume, moving more trucks faster, and recapturing market share no matter the cost. But this kind of strategy is risky. If consumer demand doesn't rebound fast enough, Ford could find itself stuck between a shrinking profit pool and rising operational costs. That's the danger of betting everything on a market correction that might not come in time. And beneath all the financial drama, there's an emotional undertone, one that speaks directly to Ford's legacy. The same company that gave America the Model T, the Mustang, and the F-150 is once again facing an existential test. It's fighting not just for sales, but for relevance in a world that's changing faster than ever. Because if Ford can't find a way to balance affordability with innovation, heritage with progress, and human labor with automation, then this discount strategy might not just reshape Ford's business. It could mark the beginning of a new era for the American auto industry itself. And that new era might look nothing like the one we've known for over a century. For the first time, the rules are being rewritten not by who builds the best truck, but by who prices it smartly, builds it efficiently, and connects with the buyer emotionally. Ford's deep discounts are forcing every competitor to look inward, to question whether the traditional model of selling expensive, over-optioned trucks still works in an economy where middle-class budgets are stretched to the limit. The truth is, the American consumer has changed. People are no longer chasing prestige or luxury badges. They're chasing value, and Ford's decision might be the wake-up call the industry desperately needed. But there's another angle, one that's making automakers nervous and workers uneasy: automation. With thinner profit margins, Ford and other companies are likely to accelerate their investment in robotics and AI-driven production lines. Why? Because automation cuts labor costs, increases efficiency, and keeps production consistent even when the market swings. But that progress comes at a price: human jobs. Some factory workers are already whispering about robots taking over more of the line. And while Ford promises it won't come at the expense of jobs, the math doesn't lie. If automation ramps up to offset lower profits, the American factory worker, the backbone of Ford's success, could once again find themselves in the crosshairs of progress. Still, Ford can't stop. It's stuck in a race it can't afford to lose. Every automaker is juggling the same equation: lower prices, higher demand, and the looming EV revolution. And Ford's leadership knows something crucial: if it doesn't lead this charge, someone else will. Because out there in China and even in startups across California, new players are watching closely. They're studying Ford's every move, analyzing consumer reaction, and preparing their next attack. If Ford's discount strategy works, they'll replicate it. But if it fails, they'll swoop in to fill the vacuum with cheaper, tech-loaded alternatives. And while all this plays out, the heart of America, the truck buyer, is standing at a crossroads too. For years, owning a truck was a statement of pride. But now, with uncertainty everywhere, it's becoming a question of practicality. Buyers are asking, do I really need a $70,000 pickup, or will a $40,000 one do the job? That shift in mindset is powerful, and Ford knows it. These discounts aren't just about moving metal. They're about redefining what value looks like in the modern auto market. Ford is betting that simplicity and affordability will win back the trust that bloated pricing destroyed. Meanwhile, analysts are warning that these price cuts could reshape the entire used vehicle market. When new trucks drop in price, used ones follow. Fast. Auction values fall, trade-ins plummet, and used dealers start losing their margins. It's already happening quietly. Data from several large used car networks shows a dip in resale prices for 2 to 4-year-old F-150s right after Ford announced its discount campaign. That means buyers waiting for a deal are about to get more options than ever. Not just new, but used too. The floodgates of affordability might be opening across the entire truck ecosystem. And if that happens, every automaker will have to adapt or get swept away. But here's the twist. Ford might actually have a long-term play hidden behind these discounts. Insiders suggest the company's planning to use these price cuts as a springboard to roll out its next-generation hybrid F-150s and electric trucks at competitive entry points. Basically, Ford could be conditioning buyers, lowering the perceived normal price of a truck now, so that when its future electric models arrive, they seem affordable by comparison. If that's true, Ford isn't just reacting to the market, it's re-engineering buyer psychology to dominate it later. Still, even if that's the case, there's one unavoidable reality. This gamble could go either way. If demand spikes and sales soar, Ford becomes the hero that brought affordable trucks back to America. But if profits collapse and Wall Street loses confidence, the same move could backfire, triggering layoffs, downgrades, and another round of painful restructuring. Either way, the industry will never be the same again, because after this, there's no going back to business as usual. Ford has already pulled the pin, and now everyone's waiting to see how big the explosion will be. And one thing's for sure, the fallout from Ford's massive truck discounts is only just beginning. Whether this bold move becomes a turning point for American manufacturing or the start of a brutal industry-wide price war, the next few months will tell us everything. Ford's gamble has reignited competition, rattled Wall Street, and put power back into the hands of buyers for the first time in years. But it's also left automakers, suppliers, and workers staring down an uncertain future. So, what do you think? Is Ford saving the American truck market, or digging itself into an even deeper hole? Will these discounts spark a new era of affordable vehicles, or will they end up breaking the system from within? Let me know what you think down in the comments. I'm curious to hear where you stand on this one. If you found this breakdown helpful and want to stay on top of the biggest moves shaking the auto industry, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you don't miss what's coming next. Because trust me, this story is far from over. The next chapter in America's automotive battle is already being written, and Ford might have just changed the game forever.